Hi everyone, my name is Jo McAlister and I'm a mindset coach. And I've been asked to talk to you today to help you look at how you can move forward through this COVID-19 experience. So who am I? Well, I actually work as a mindset coach, which means that I actually help people to deal with the unconscious patterns that are going on in their mind. And these are the things that hold us back and block us. So today we're going to be looking at some of the things that hopefully will help you, some of the things that I've experienced, and looking at how we can move forward. So if we're all ready, we'll get started. So the coronavirus, and in particular COVID-19, has brought the whole world to a standstill. Most of us wouldn't have thought that this was possible just a few months ago, and yet here we are. So we can either become totally bogged down in the negative implications of this, and it is a serious virus, or we can start to look for opportunities and possibilities. So over the next half hour, I hope to show you how to take a more positive approach to where you are now. To start with, I will take you through how the mind processes information. And this is quite important because if we don't understand it, how can we actually change it? Then we look at how well equipped our bodies are to actually deal with stress. And most people, again, don't realise that we're actually really well equipped to deal with stress. And then finally, what additional simple techniques you can do to support your own well-being. And this is based on experience that I've had and some techniques that have been around for a very long time but are really, really useful. Okay, let's start with how the mind works. So something is going on outside of us, and that information we actually take in. So we take it in through all of our 5 senses, and there's up to 2 million pieces of information floating about through all the senses at any particular second in front of us. And what actually happens is that we can't cope with that amount of information, so we have filters which are in place, which actually help us. And these filters delete a vast majority of the information that we don't need is deleted. So for example, you don't need to know how many houses were on the road that you passed, what colour the curtains were, how many people were walking. So we delete all of that and you won't even remember because you don't need it. We distort information. Distortion actually means like it's a misrepresentation of a situation. For example, people will say, oh, I was no good at maths at school, I can never add up, or I can't do this because I was never good at maths. That's where we distort information, and we think because someone said to us at one point we weren't good at something, that it actually means we're not. And generalization. This is actually really important because this is where we learn. So the toddler who discovers that he can open the door handle, then he can actually go around and open all of the doors. Now sometimes we don't actually want that, but we do that. So we learn bits of information so we don't have to relearn them. So that's how we generalize. It can also be a place where we have learnt something. So when we're very small, for example, we've got bitten by a dog, and then you decide that all dogs are dangerous and you don't want to have anything to do with dogs. So you can actually build a phobia around that generalization, and you can have a phobia of dogs. The next pattern are beliefs, values, previous experiences and memories. And these are our unconscious filters, and they determine why we all experience things differently, because it's totally down to how we perceive them. So it could be the same situation, but because of these beliefs, values and previous experiences, we can actually view a situation differently. So beliefs, those are the things that we hold to be true, either about ourselves, others or the world. We all have beliefs. It doesn't have to be religious beliefs, it can be beliefs about anything, but everybody has beliefs. Values are based on our experiences to date. So they determine what you consider to be right or wrong. So what are your values? What's important to you? And that's how you actually filter a lot of information coming in as well, whether this is meaningful or not meaningful. Previous experiences, that's how we find past experiences, things in the life before, will determine how we move forward or whether we're interested in certain things. And our memories are very important. They significantly influence most of what we do today. So through that process, we've started off with 2 million pieces of information. The filters bring it down to probably about 134,000 pieces of information. And that then goes into a process where we do what we create an internal map of reality. And it's a bit like a collage. It's very similar to a collage. So it's pieces of information that we put together that's only a fraction, remember, of the actual full picture. And that's what we decide our reality is about. This causes our emotional states, how we feel about things, which in turn leads to our behaviour. Now, if you want to create a change in your life, it's at this point in the collage, the information that's stored in your unconscious mind, that you can make a difference. And this is where I work. So this is where I would do a lot of my work as a mindset coach. And because you've learnt something or learnt to behave in a particular way, you can change that. And part of the work I do is looking at where the patterns started from and changing those patterns. But it is completely possible to change the way you behave or react in a certain way. And this is how you start to look at the world differently, and you create a different map of the world. And then suddenly you're actually doing things differently because you're seeing the world in a different way. Now, I love this slide because I think it's a really good representation of what our filters do. Because we can't have all of that information. We can only deal with about 7 plus or minus 2 pieces of information at a time. So when you're starting off with 2 million and you're coming down to this small amount, obviously you're not getting the full picture. And when you start taking some of those filters away or adjusting them, things can look totally different. And that's where we're at the moment. Yes, we're in the middle of COVID-19, but actually there's opportunities and things that we should be looking at, not just dwelling on the negatives. And when you start to lift some of those filters and then you start to look, you can see opportunities. You can see where you want to go with your business. And actually a lot of creativity happens at this stage. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how what we think really influences our outcome. So Crum and Langer in Mindset Matters in 2007 did some research into why housekeepers who have a pretty heavy, arduous job tended to be overweight and poor health, yet in many ways they were doing quite a lot of exercise. So Crum recruited housekeepers at 7 hotels and all across the United States, just really to explore their beliefs about health and weight. Now, housekeeping is a strenuous job, burning about 300 calories an hour by comparison to an average office job, which burns about 100. So we're looking at 3 times as much energy being used in the day throughout the whole day. And sometimes their hours are quite long. When they spoke to the housekeepers, 66% of them believed they weren't exercising regularly, and 33% said they did no exercise at all. And it's actually true because their bodies reflected that. They tended to be overweight, they had high blood pressure. At 4 of the hotels, Crum did a 15-minute presentation telling them that they were exceeding the standard recommendations for physical exercise and they should expect to see the health benefits of being active just through their normal work. The housekeepers at the other 3 hotels were a control group receiving information on the importance of physical exercise. 4 weeks later, those that were told that their work was exercise had lost weight, their blood pressure was lower, and they even liked their jobs more. Housekeepers in the control group showed none of the improvements above. And the outcome they decided was the effect you expect is the effect you get. Now, this is really important because what we tell our minds and what we decide is the most important thing actually becomes our reality. So if you're feeding yourself a lot of negative information and believe that things are going to go bad and not work, that's actually most likely to be the outcome you will get. So the important thing for me here is that the first element of change is awareness. You have to be aware that something doesn't feel right, that you tune into your body, you're not happy where you're at, or something just doesn't feel right. And then the second element is that you have to understand where it comes from. So in terms of all the work that I do, that's where I focus. People will come and they know something's not right, but they're not quite sure what it is. So that's very much where I work, and that's where change happens, and that's where positive outcomes come from. Okay, so let's move on to how our bodies manage stress. So what is stress? I spent quite a long time trying to find a definition that made sense to me. And this is one by Kelly McGonigal, who is a health psychologist and has done a lot of work with stress. And her definition was that stress arises when something you care about is at stake. And that makes sense to me, because why would you get worried about something that was pointless or didn't mean anything to you? So how do we actually deal with stress? When a stressful situation arises that isn't life-threatening, the brain shifts into a challenge response mode. And this is actually quite important, because most of us don't like that experience and we tend to run away from it. But actually, I'm going to show you why it happens and what also happens in your body to support this process. So we actually have increased energy. So if you've ever been in a situation, you sort of are aware that you feel you have a bit more energy. This happens because the liver dumps fat and sugar into the bloodstream. Your breathing deepens to deliver oxygen to the heart, and your heart rate increases so that oxygen, fat, and sugar are delivered to the brain and muscles. Stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, helps the muscles and brain to take in and use energy more efficiently. And this can give extraordinary powers. You know, where you've heard of maybe a mother lifting a car because her child has got caught under it, or people doing things that in normal everyday life you would never ever see happening. That's where this comes from. The next thing that happens is that the brain fires up. Adrenaline wakens up the senses, providing more concentrated attention to focus on the physical environment. So you're more tuned into what's going around you and you pick up things that normally you wouldn't even pick up. And all of this can lead to a rush. And sometimes this is what people who do extreme sports, they get that rush and that buzz from it. This is your brain gearing up to actually make you safe in that situation and to help you deal with it. Oxytocin is known as the cuddle hormone, and it enhances intuition and empathy. And all of us know about that feeling when somebody gives you a hug if you haven't been well or there's something wrong. It just creates that feeling in your body, and that's caused by oxytocin. It reduces the fear response. If you've ever been in a situation where you've had to address something, or somebody has really, really annoyed you and you had to say something, and you just think, oh my goodness, I would never have done that normally. But you get that energy and that buzz to do something that's really, really important to you. It's actually also good for cardiovascular health. The heart has special receptors for oxytocin, which helps the cells regenerate and repair from damage. So when oxytocin is in your stress response, it's actually good for your heart. After the situation has passed, we go into what the body refers and looks at as repair and recovery. So you have cortisol and oxytocin, which reduce inflammation and restore balance. And several hours after a stress response, the brain is rewiring to learn from the experience. So when you're going over and over something in your head, that's your brain trying to make sense from it and to actually learn from it. So stress leaves an imprint on the brain, which prepares it to deal with future similar situations. And this is referred to as stress inoculation. So every time you've been through a traumatic experience, or even just a small experience, you learn from it and you deal with it the next time better because of that experience. Now, I just want to give you an example of maybe how that can be demonstrated. So we have road trauma accident survivors in Ohio, and urine samples were taken from patients who had survived a major road traffic accident to see if post-traumatic stress could be predicted on the basis of stress hormones present after a trauma. Now, 1 month later, 55% were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, which is quite a severe and debilitating condition. Usually people can't go out, they'll not get into cars, their whole life is put on hold. So it's quite a serious condition. 45% had no symptoms. So when they looked into that, they found that the group with no symptoms had higher levels of cortisol and adrenaline in the urine, which had actually helped them deal with the stress. So our body is really geared up to dealing with stress and to making us stronger because of it, but we have to stop blocking it and telling ourselves that it's not good and it's bad for us. It's there to support us, and if we see it as our body being able to cope with stress, we will actually start and do that and be more productive in what we do. So to summarise, when your heart starts pounding and your palms start to sweat and your breathing quickens and you have butterflies in your tummy, just remember that this is there because your body is actually dealing with the situation. It's helping you to focus, it's heightening your senses, increasing your motivation and mobilising energy. And one of the things that happens in traumatic situations is that we reach out to others, and the oxytocin encourages social interaction. It actually you want to be near family and friends, and you tend to support people in times of trauma. And we've seen that with the COVID-19. People are doing things to help other people and to see what they can do. Even though they're in lockdown, there's a lot of videos online and things going up to actually make people laugh or to support them when they're feeling quite isolated. And then the other side of that is every time we go through a traumatic experience, however small, the body actually and the mind learns from it. It tends to restore the nervous system balance, and it plays things over and over to make sense of it so we can learn and actually move on. So a lot of very good things happen every day in our bodies to actually make us deal with stress. So we need to stop seeing stress as a bad thing. Yes, too much stress isn't good for anybody, but in the normal everyday run of things, our body's pretty well equipped to deal with the amount of stress that we should be dealing with. If it's getting too much, then we need to look at that and where that's coming from. So that leads us nicely on to what we can actually do to help ourselves in these situations. And that brings me to what's called energy psychology or energy medicine. We are surrounded by electromagnetic energies that are man-made, and our bodies have to contend with them. And there's a lot of magnetic energy going through our bodies, and it has to run in a particular way. It tends to need to cross over. And sometimes what happens with all the pollution that's around, with all the waves that are in the air, is that it gets messed up. And part of what I have discovered and have learned is that if we help to keep our energy crossed over and release it when it gets stuck, this actually can really improve our mental health and our physical health. It's techniques that have been around for thousands of years, and it's quite similar to acupuncture, where you have people who put pins in particular areas. This works from actually focusing on meridians, which are the channels that energy runs through your body. And by working on them and focusing on them, it actually helps to release blocks and to get your energy flowing back in a crisscross pattern. Now, I'm going to show you the technique that is the daily routine. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes once you get into the way of doing it, and the benefits are amazing. I have seen this work so well for people to increase their energy. Sometimes when you feel like you have no energy, it's not that you have no energy, it's just that your energy is blocked. And when your energy isn't running in the right way, it takes almost half as much of your energy to function without actually getting any benefit from it. So please follow the demonstration. It's very simple. Take it away and do it. If you're doing it regularly, it becomes the norm and your body begins to adapt and change any patterns that need changed in your body, and it does it automatically. So please follow it through, try it, and I promise it will make a difference. We've looked at how our mind processes information and how when you have that information, you can actually make changes, how our bodies are actually equipped to manage stress, and if we work with them, it can make life so much easier. And also then looking at techniques from energy medicine or energy psychology, which can really help our body. None of these things have any side effects or hold you back in any way, and they're very simple to do and they don't cost anything. Focus on the positives, try and get yourself to where you want to be. If something's blocking you, think about it and let it go. And please see your future in a positive way. Many thanks. So this is the daily energy routine. And it's important because if our energies are moving in the right way, and our energies are supposed to crisscross along our body all the time, and if we can keep them doing that, then everything works so much better in your body. So this is from Donna Eden's daily routine. So I'm just going to take you through it, and please just stand up and follow me. It's very simple. It's not complicated. Don't ever push your body. If it feels you can't reach a position, don't worry about it. But most people should be able to manage this. So the very first thing we're going to start with is putting your hand on your shoulder pressing in slightly, and pull it across your body to your hip. On the other shoulder, and we're going to do this for about 3 times on each side. Perfect. And quite often I'll shake things off, it's just to let energy go. So the next thing is actually tapping on meridian points, and these points release any blocked energy and help us to function better. So the first point is just below the eyes, on the bone of the eye socket, and just tap quite firmly, just for a few seconds. Great. And then we move down to just where your collarbone sort of comes to a point, there's a soft area just below that. And these, again, is really good for keeping energy moving and keeping everything going in the right direction. And just thump quite firmly. Great. And the next point is just down a little bit. And here is really, really good as well for clearing energy. And the next point, which is just sort of for ladies along the brow line, but just under your arms, and just thump there. Perfect. Now, if you feel tender in any of these areas, it just means that you actually need to do that, because that's where you're releasing any blocked energy and getting things moving in the right way. So the next thing that we're going to move into is the cross crawl. And again, this is about getting energy crossing over. Very simple. You cross opposite arms and knee. About 5 of these. Perfect. That's all there is to it. It's very simple. Anyone can do it, but it's very, very effective. So the next thing we're going to do is actually a little bit different. Put your hands in front of you, cross them, pull them up, and take a deep breath in and out. Raise your body when you're doing it. Deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And one more, and out. If anyone finds it difficult to do this with their hands, please don't do it. But apart from that, it's actually quite straightforward. Open your hands, put them into pyramid position, thumbs just in the center of your forehead, just between your eyes. A deep breath in and out. And one more, and out. Drop your fingers into the center of your forehead, pull across your crown to your temples. Another deep breath in and out. And this is actually called the crown pull. It's actually very important because a lot of us hold a lot of stress and tension in our head. So put your fingers in the center of your head, press down and pull slightly. Press down, pull slightly. All the way along the center line of your head, right down to the back of your neck. And let your hands drop on your neck and pull them down. Then drop your hands on your shoulders, a deep breath in. Bring it down into the front of your chest and another deep breath in. Perfect. Now, just to keep all of the energy in place, what we do is actually the zip up. So what you do is you bring your hands from the front right the way up to under your chin and a deep breath in. And the same at the back, just follow your hands up the back and roughly meet it there and again under your nose. Perfect. And we finish that off with the lock up, which is your finger on your belly button and your other finger in your forehead and a deep breath in. Done. Now what this does is get your energy moving. If there's any blocks, it starts to shift them, and it also helps to get your energy crossing over, and you will start to feel better. You need to be doing this every night and morning. It's only a few minutes, and whenever you get to know the routine, you can do it yourself. So please do it. It really does make a difference.